All right. Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining our demo day session today. Just to give everyone a little bit of time to join in, I'll just give everyone about 30 seconds. Thank you. All right, I think that's been about 30 seconds. So anyway, before we begin, I just wanted to quickly go over a few housekeeping items. So first, just know that today's webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand after this live session. So if you ever want to come back and reference anything, or if you have colleagues that couldn't make it, we'll have an on-demand recording available later today. If you have a question during today's session, go ahead and submit it in the Q&A section on your console. We have folks in the back end who will be answering questions throughout, but we will also have a Q&A session at the very end of this session. So we'll be able to answer any questions that come up. And if we don't get a chance to answer your question today, just know that we'll be sure to follow up with you after. And then lastly, I just want to say, please don't be afraid to share what's on your mind. Please go ahead and introduce yourself in the attendee chat, share what you think, tell us what you think about today's presentation, what you'd like to see, or just come and say hi. Would love to hear from you. All right. So with that said, I'd love to introduce ourselves. My name is Ani, and I'm on the product marketing team here at GEM. I've been at GEM for almost 3 years now, and I've been in the recruiting tech industry for over 7 years at this point. So I'd like to say I'm a little bit of a veteran. And I've been working closely with my colleague Pallavi, who I'll let introduce herself.
Thanks, Ani. I'm Pallavi. I've been at GEM for around 6 weeks now, but was previously the co-founder of Interview Planner, have been working on interview scheduling and been really hands-on with building and speaking to a lot of coordinators in the industry for the past 4 years. So very excited to bring Interview Planner into GEM as GEM scheduling and show you the tool today.
Awesome. Cool. So just to kind of give everyone a heads up, in case you haven't already heard, GEM acquired Interview Planner a few weeks back. Interview Planner is a scheduling software that helps teams fast-track hiring and deliver exceptional candidate experiences throughout that interview process. And so with this new addition to GEM, we're bringing those scheduling automation features into our core platform. And as part of this acquisition, Interview Planner will be integrated into the GEM ecosystem as a new product. It's called GEM Scheduling. This means that you can now use GEM to schedule interviews in the same exact interface where you might be using GEM to source candidates, review applications, manage candidates, and more. And then I know some of you might have questions about where is GEM Scheduling available. So just to get that right off the bat, GEM Scheduling is available immediately for any of our customers using GEM ATS, Greenhouse, or Lever. We're also actively building more and more integrations, so we expect GEM Scheduling to be available for Workday in the coming months, followed by other ATSs like SuccessFactors, iCIMS, and Smart Recruiters. Cool. So before we dive into the demo, I wanted to share a little bit more about the challenges that we're trying to solve with GEM Scheduling and why we were so excited to acquire Interview Planner. When we were talking to our customers, we uncovered a number of pain points with current scheduling products and workflows. One, a lot of the process can be really time consuming when it comes to coordinating interview schedules, tracking everyone's workload, adjusting for time zones. And this has been incredibly manual for many of our customers. That's why with GEM Scheduling, we remove a lot of that manual process by automatically optimizing your scheduling based on like intelligent recommendations. The other thing that we've heard is that communicating with candidates, whether there's changes, can be really inconsistent and time consuming again. Maybe an interview needed to be rescheduled last minute, maybe someone else is interviewing the candidate. All those things make it really challenging to stay on top of all the communication that occurs, whether it's through email or text. So again, GEM Scheduling gives recruiters the power to essentially automate a lot of the changes that happen and communicate those proactively to candidates so that they're never left in the dark. And then internally as well, scheduling can also be quite messy. updating calendars, updating who's attending the debriefs, making sure that the interviewer has all the information like the interview questions, the LinkedIn profile. All those things can change very quickly. And again, gem scheduling allows us to clean up that mess a little bit by automating those adjustments, whether it's in the interviewer's calendar or in any debriefs that they're attending. And then lastly, interview training, especially for organizations that are growing, is huge. By having a solid interview training program, you're allowed to expand your pool of interviewers so that it's not just a few folks who are constantly dedicating a lot of time and effort into bringing in new candidates into your organization. So with gem scheduling, we're able to allow you to create easy and effective interview training programs through shadow sessions and reverse shadow sessions that, again, will be automated and you can track who's progressing where without having to note it down on any spreadsheets or notepads or anything like that. So what are some of those core features that I'm talking about? Pallavi will go through this in the demo, but just at a high level, when we talk about intelligent scheduling optimization, what we're talking about is gem scheduling being able to automatically take into account time zones, interviewer load management, interview focus areas and preferences so that the schedule that you see or the recommendations you see coming from gem scheduling are taking into account all those nuances. When it comes to candidate experience, it's about making it really easy for the candidates to share their availability or even self-schedule, while also ensuring that every communication that they come looks consistent from a branding standpoint. For the hiring teams, it's setting up automated templates, analytics, and other automations for rescheduling and changes so that if changes do occur, they're not coming with a lot of chaos or confusion for the internal team. And then when it comes to training programs, the ability to add training programs directly into the scheduling process and then being able to track who's completing their training programs and who's already certified, making that, again, really easy and visible for the hiring team. And here are just some of the results that our customers have seen when using gem scheduling. In summary, because with the automation that we're providing, it's a lot easier and faster for our recruiters to schedule on-site panels. In fact, when we compared customers using gem scheduling versus those who were not, we found that the recruiters using our automation features were able to schedule twice as many interviewers per recruiter. And with that increase in speed and efficiency, we're also seeing that our customers are able to reduce the time and stage leading up to that first interview. And that overall has reduced time to hire by 25%. So before I hand it off to Pallavi, one last thing. There's a number of features that come with gem scheduling, and Pallavi will go through some of them today. We may not go through all of it today, but if you do want to dig in deeper because you want to use gem scheduling for your team, feel free to get in touch with us. All right. So with that said, you've heard my spiel. I'll now hand it over to Pallavi. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Ani. I will start sharing my screen, and we will walk through scheduling a candidate from Greenhouse. So like Ani mentioned, gem scheduling integrates with Greenhouse, Lever, and gem ATS in very similar ways. So you'll have buttons to jump into scheduling workflows or other workflows from your ATS. For this candidate, Amy, we're going to schedule for a face-to-face stage. So this is similar to an on-site stage, something with multiple interviews in it, sometimes being scheduled across several days or back-to-back on one day. And that'll kind of highlight the various pieces of automation we have that make this, which is one of the most complex pieces of a scheduling workflow, a lot simpler. So we'll jump into the scheduling workflow. And the first step is going to be picking which interviews you want to schedule. The second step is going to be picking who you want to be an interviewer. So we'll see how you can go from something really simple to where one specific interviewer does the interview to something a lot more complex with training programs and interview eligibilities and tags. Next step is picking the candidate's availability. And fourth step is going to be the automation that creates those optimal schedules. Then we'll fill out some candidate communication and send out the schedule. So for this, we will go ahead and schedule interviews that are tied to Greenhouse scorecards, as well as a few additional things, a greeting, a break, a wrap-up interview. And for all of these, you can lock them in at certain positions if you want to make sure that the greeting is always happening at the beginning or the end, or that the break is always happening in the middle. For picking your interviewers, in its simplest form, you can pick a specific person to do the interview. As your company scales processes, you might want to combine tags, training programs to create larger pools of interviewers that the scheduling tool can then find the optimal one in step 4. So the way that you can set that up is kind of replace what you currently have going on with an interviewer spreadsheet and feed that information directly into the scheduling tool. So you can tag interviewers with things like department names, seniority levels, coding languages they use, anything that you might want to use to create interviewer pools. And you can also attach interview skills to those interviewers. These interview skills or interview eligibilities can be attached to training programs. And you can set up each training program with exactly the phases that you want and how many interviews it takes to complete each phase. A really common setup we see is a couple of reverse shadows before a couple of shadows. And so we will automatically move people through these training programs as they complete interviews. You can jump into what the interview is for each training session. You can customize any specific person's interview training program. If they feel like they need an extra shadow or an extra reverse shadow, you can make that change just for them. And when the trainee graduates from the program, they will get an email that looks something like this. So it's really easy to incorporate a trainee into your scheduling workflow by just using the corresponding trainee tag. You can see everyone who's part of that pool. And we'll see in step 4 how we actually select a trainee. On the next step, you pick your candidate availability. Most of the time for this step, as well as the first 2 steps, we kind of just sync with your ATS so we can pull in all of this information, whether they've submitted it through the ATS or our request availability workflow. And you have the opportunity here to edit the candidate's availability if you want to. We've also pulled in the candidate's time zone automatically based on where they submitted availability from. So the schedule step is what hopefully is going to save your recruiters and your coordinators all that time that they currently spend manually comparing calendars. And we will just create options that work the best as they possibly can, even with really busy interviewer schedules and limited candidate availability. You can go into a side-by-side view where you can see what's on everyone's calendars at the time, see all of the guests on the event. And when we're creating these schedules, we are taking into account candidate availability, interviewer availability. If there are multiple people who are available to do the interview, we're round robining based on interview load to make sure that things are staying evenly distributed across your team. And you have the ability to play with this schedule similarly to what you would in a calendaring tool. And that's another reason that folks really, really like using this tool. It's not a take it or leave it kind of schedule. You still have the flexibility that you need when coordinating to move things around, switch to a different day. And if your one block schedule isn't the best fit, you can even look at schedules that are generated across 2 days or 3 days, which is very, very common in remote interviewing workflows. So with the 2 block options, you can, depending on the candidate's availability, either get options that are split across 2 different days or sometimes a morning and evening split. And we're looking at every single option. So you can be assured that we'll never present you a screen that shows you no options because we're literally looking at millions or even billions of schedules sometimes. So once you have something that you're pretty happy with, you can move forward to the next step, which is filling out candidate communication. Even if it is a schedule that is split across multiple days, we're able to kind of format it all into a single confirmation email. If you give the candidate their agenda, we can format it cleanly and also attach people's LinkedIns and roles. And we have an integration with Slack, if you use Slack, that allows us to automatically create a private hiring channel to discuss this candidate's interview performance. Finally, you look at everything, review the schedule that you're going to send out, review all the candidate communication, and you can either create the schedule or you can put the schedule on hold. So if you're working with EAs who have to kind of give approval before you can schedule on someone's calendar, or if you have a schedule with a few conflicts, you can put it on hold, which will block off the time on interviewers' calendars. It's a really helpful feature when you're trying to make sure things don't get scheduled over while you're trying to confirm with your team. So once everything is scheduled, we automatically send out interview invites. We create the interviews in your ATS. If we jump over to our email, we'll see the confirmation email that the candidate received. So they'll see something that looks like this, all customizable by you. Any piece of communication, you can curate the candidate experience. And then over in our calendar, we will see an example of an invite that the candidate receives. So we automatically generate the video conferencing links, attach the video conferencing link to candidate and interviewer invites. And then here's an example of an internal invite where the interviewer has all of the information about the candidate, linked to their pronouns, linked to their name pronunciation, if they've submitted it through our availability request workflow, link to jump into submit feedback, and then typically also a link to the resume will be right here if that candidate has a resume in the ATS. For making a change to the schedule, it's really, really easy to make it in one place and have that reflected everywhere. So you can edit the schedule, switch someone out for someone else, and then we will automatically update those agendas, and all of the calendar events will automatically switch the interviewer out in the Slack channel if there was one created, and will automatically swap them out in a debrief if there was one scheduled. So all of those manual pieces that coordinators are sometimes doing last minute and trying to make sure that nothing gets missed, you can kind of rest assured that all of those details are taken care of. And that is pretty much it for the scheduling workflow. Before moving on, I will kind of show the candidate-facing experience for two other workflows. So when you request availability from a candidate, you can supply them with kind of like a branded form where they can submit their availability, submit their pronouns and name pronunciation, and include some constraints to make sure you're collecting usable availability. So that's what folks really like about this workflow, is that you're trying to schedule someone for a certain length of time, you can make sure they're giving you blocks that work. You can make sure that they're giving you enough options to work with as well. And you can customize that for each stage and for each role. And then for automating the earlier portions of your workflow, so things like recruiter screens or hiring manager screens, you can send out links for the candidate to book directly on interviewers' calendars. And you can even set up automation such that those emails get sent out without you having to manually click any buttons once the candidate is moved into the stage. So for Corinne's case, we'll see that availability gets automatically requested. And the candidate will receive an email that looks something like this. They can then jump into the email and pick a time. Works similarly to a lot of self-scheduling tools out there, but this one will also take into account like load balancing limits, conflict keywords, the things that you can put into the scheduling tool. And it'll work kind of seamlessly with your ATS. So once someone picks a time, that interview will automatically get created in your ATS. Cool. That is all I have to show for the demo. Happy to take any questions. I see a bunch are coming in, and yeah.
That's fun. Yeah, no, thanks, Bobby. I'm just going and sending a few questions into our Q&A panel. But let's go ahead and start from the very beginning. Go ahead and share this on my screen. A couple of people have voted for this. Is there any integrations with Slack to send interviewer notifications?
Yes, so we do have an automated Slack channel that we can create per candidate, and we post messages in the Slack channel whenever a schedule is created or whenever a schedule is updated. So that's where interviewers are kind of notified when things are scheduled and when things are updated.
Awesome.
Mhm.
And then, let's see. Someone just asked, will the session be recorded? Yes, I think we answered in the Q&A. A link will be sent to this on-demand recording. So we'll go through that. And let's see. There we go. Can we see how to self-schedule candidates for recruiter screens, hiring managers, and et cetera?
Yes, that was that last portion of that was the last workflow that I showed. See, there were a few other questions on self-scheduling as well, so I'll try to cover those. The self-scheduling function does give an interviewer the ability to block 15 minutes before or after other meetings. And I think that was the main other one on self-scheduling.
Cool. Another good question. So are all interviewers required to be in GEM? I think we're talking about GEM scheduling. In this case, not all users are in GEM versus Greenhouse.
That's a good question. No, they are not required to be in GEM. We pull your interviewer list from your directory system, so either Google or Outlook, and then we also check to make sure that they have an account in your ATS before scheduling them. You definitely don't have to import each person into GEM scheduling.
Perfect. Cool. And then another question, can we program in which interviewers are first choice versus backup for each role?
You can program in multiple alternates for any type of interview. We will pick the first choice versus backup more based on their availability and interview load rather than you designating a preferred interviewer.
Yep, got it. And then, this is a good question. Is there an integration with CoderPad to create links for coding interviews?
Yes, there is. So the way that our CoderPad integration works is when you're going through that scheduling workflow, you check a CoderPad box for any interview that you'd like us to automatically create a link for. We'll create it and we'll include the CoderPad links in the agenda.
Awesome. And this is a good question. I can also help answer this. Can you share a little bit about how this is different from Greenhouse's scheduling tool? So that's a great question. If you do indeed get in touch with someone from our team about this as you're investigating it, we have some detailed documentation that we can share as well. But at a very high level, there's a few things that make it really different from Greenhouse. One is just the intelligent recommendations that come in that Blavie shared earlier, like how it takes into account time zones, interview loads management, candidate availability, conflict keywords. These are all like more robust features that are automated and taken account for when GEM scheduling shows you panel recommendations. These are things that we haven't found in Greenhouse or other ATS scheduling tools. We also allow your team to create branded candidate-facing pages where candidates can submit their availability or even self-schedule, again, allowing you to create a cohesive branded experience throughout. And then other kind of like, ease of use and quality of life improvements as well, especially for the hiring team, like auto creating hiring team Slack channels so that the interview team can be up to date on one place. And also the ability to create training programs, as Blavie shared earlier in the demo, so that you can expand your pool of interviewers so that's not just the same folks every time. I think those are the big ones, but Blavie, is there anything else that I missed?
Yeah, I think you got most of them. I would say the highest level things are like the biggest time savers are that automation. It takes a long time in Greenhouse's scheduling tool or any like manual calendaring tool to construct a schedule of events where there's several back-to-back interviews or spread across different days. So it really condenses the time there.
Yeah, cool. And then next question here, can you manually add candidate availability into GEM scheduling if they don't submit?
Yes, you can. There's a place where you can go to just drag and drop and select the candidate's availability.
Cool. Do you have the ability to create different links for different durations of interviews?
Good question. I think this might be pertaining to the self-scheduling workflow. And each link that you create is unique for that specific role and stage. So in Greenhouse, if your recruiter phone screen is 30 minutes, it'll be the link that's created for that candidate will be personalized for that candidate in that stage. Yeah.
Got it. Cool. And then does self-scheduling give the interviewer ability to block 15 minutes before or after other meetings?
Yes. So the interviewer preferences, they can set up the following things based on their own preferences. The buffer time, which is what you asked about, 15 minutes before or after other meetings. They can set up conflict keywords. So those are like keywords for events on your calendar that can be ignored. So things like interview block or focus time or lunch. And then the other thing that they can set up is out of office keywords and interview limits. So if someone wants to only have a max of 3 interviews per day, the self-scheduling link will respect that preference.
Yeah, as someone who's hiring right now, I can vouch for that. I've had 3 back-to-back interviews that have been scheduled through Gem scheduling, and there's a 15-minute gap between each. So very appreciative of that feature. Cool. And then next question is, can the scheduler read if someone has an interview block on their calendar, or will it assume that time is unavailable?
Yep, so that's where those conflict keyword settings would come in.
Yep, exactly. And those are customizable and programmable for your unique team, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Cool.
Yep, you can set up company-wide best practices for that, and then you can also customize per interviewer for specific interviewers who have their own calendar preferences.
Yep. Another great question, are the Slack channels created for each new candidate scheduled for face-to-face or aggregate all candidates into one channel?
So it is a hiring channel per candidate. You can choose when you want the Slack channel to be created on like a one-off basis as well. So if you don't want to create one for a particular candidate or you want to do it at a different stage, that is all programmable and up to you. But yeah, it's one per candidate. I know that a common concern with that is Slack channel noise. So we do auto archive the channels once a candidate is done with the process.
Nice. Awesome. And then, do you have an integration with Okta to reference our employees for interview pool?
We don't currently have an integration with Okta. Our single sign-on is based on like Google and Outlook, but it's definitely good to note, something that we can think about for the future.
Yeah, this is Angelina, thank you for that question. If you do indeed get in touch with someone on our team and this is a must-have, please just let your point of contact at Gem know. This is something that we can prioritize accordingly, just if we're aware that there's someone who would be interested in this. Cool. Is there an integration with CodeSignal?
Not currently. We currently integrate with CoderPad and HackerRank, but I know CodeSignal is high on that list of next coding integrations.
Yeah, and again, to Sarah, if you indeed are in an in-depth conversation with us and this is one of the blockers for you to use Gem scheduling, please let us know. This is something that our team can prioritize accordingly if needed, but it's already on our roadmap. Cool. And then when scheduling, we cross-reference on-call calendars that pull from GCal URLs. This info does not appear on interview calendars. Is there a way to integrate that information, or would it still need to be a manual cross-check?
That's funny. I was just talking to an existing customer about this. This is a request that has now come up twice very recently, so we'll look at prioritizing it accordingly. But currently, no, there's not a way to cross-reference an on-call calendar.
Got it. Cool. And then, is there a way we can know the candidate viewed our availability request / interview confirmation email?
Good question. So we have some teams using HubSpot or other kind of email tracking tools where you can put a BCC into the email, and so that's how they know. While there's not a native way to know this in the platform yet, we do have automated follow-ups which help with that. So if a candidate doesn't submit availability request or doesn't schedule their own interview within a certain number of business days that you can pick, we'll automatically send a ping to them.
Got it. Cool. Oh, this is a fun question. How does Gem scheduling know an interviewer's work hours?
Ooh, good question. We pull their time zone and working hours from their Google Calendar, and then you can go in and customize per interviewer if people have different interviewing hours than their working hours.
Cool. And then, Andrea, I see a question. Can you show an example of that? I don't. I may do a shorter screen with an internal versus external candidate. I might have to refer back to the question we were talking about. Or is this about? Andrea, if you're still on here and you want to submit your question, Oh, can you show an example of self-scheduling is what I put in.
Sure. Do we have enough time for that, Ani? I'd be happy to. Just want to be conscious of time as well.
Yeah, I think we still have about 10 or so minutes to go through Q&A, and we just have a few more questions. So let's go ahead. I'll stop sharing for a sec. Cool.
Okay. I will share my screen.
And the context Andrea just added is with different durations is what she's asking for.
Gotcha. Yeah. So let's say we have a candidate that we want to send a self-scheduling link to. I'll send Amy a self-scheduling link, even though she's already scheduled. It's the same idea. When you're going through the self-scheduling link workflow, you can customize the duration for that particular candidate. So my recommendation there would be, even if the candidate's in the same role and stage, and you sometimes modify the duration, I wouldn't set up the automation. I would instead leave it up to you to pick the duration and go through this workflow every time. So you can pick the interviewer, it'll fill in their working hours, and then you have all of the same preferences that you can set up on the stage. So like whether you want to allow the candidate to reschedule, whether you want to allow the candidate to cancel their interview, automatic follow-up preferences, whether you want it to be a phone call or a video call, and then the candidate communication. So all of these things, while they are settable by default, you can also customize it and make one-off notes per candidate.
Awesome. Cool. All right. Just moving right along. Let's see. Looking for more questions here. There we go. Next question was, can coordinators or admins add in interview preferences on behalf of the interviewers?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's the way that I see most teams do it, is the coordinators are the ones managing the interviewer preferences. Interviewers have the ability to go in and update their own preferences, but it just depends on how much leeway you want to give your team versus how much you want to manage.
Got it. Cool. And then what Outlook read writes are required? Does it read the content of meeting invites, the title of the meeting invite, or just which windows of time are available?
Good question. It does not read the content of meeting invites. It reads the title of the meeting invite, and that's in real time. The permissions that we have are based on whatever Outlook permissions you give your team. So a coordinator accessing the tool would be able to see the same calendars that they can typically see in Outlook. It doesn't give them more permissions or less permissions than what you already have set up in your workspace.
Got it. Cool. And then another great question from Victoria, and I can take this one. What is the pricing structure to enable this? So great question. If you are using GEM ATS, or if you choose to buy GEM ATS, GEM scheduling is complimentarily included into the GEM ATS experience. So there's no additional payment there. If you are on Lever or Greenhouse, GEM ATS will be available as an add-on module, and the pricing will be based on the size of your company. So we can share more if you are indeed interested, if you want to get in touch with our team, but it's simply just a fixed platform fee on top of Greenhouse or Lever if that's what you want to use. Cool. And then let's see, skipping through. All right. Great question from Shelby. How does GEM do with custom or atypical scheduling requests? For example, if a recruiter requests only certain interviewer teams or levels for a particular candidate.
Yeah, I think this is where those tags really come in handy. You can tag your I think the short answer is it does really well because of the tags. You can tag interviewers with different things like different levels, different teams, and then when you're going through the scheduling workflow for a candidate, you can just say, I want you to pick from the pool of people who are on the engineering team and are senior level or above, and it'll just automatically pull in that pool of like 14 people or however many to look at their schedules without you having to cross-reference a spreadsheet to figure out who fits that team.
Yeah, got it. Cool. All right. And then another question, I think a couple of more people asked this too. What are the pricing tiers? So I think we just covered this, but someone also added, could we revisit how this is automatically included in our GEM plan? So great question. So GEM offers a series of different products: sourcing, CRM, ATS, analytics. If you are a GEM ATS customer, so you're using GEM ATS, GEM scheduling is already included in GEM ATS. If you are a Greenhouse ATS customer or a Lever ATS customer, you can buy GEM scheduling as an add-on product when partnering with GEM. Hope that clarifies. Cool. And then another great question, what should we be aware of when certain interviewers on a loop cancel after being scheduled and need to be replaced?
When an interviewer declines their calendar invite, you will get a notification. Whoever scheduled the interview will get a notification in their email that will say like, Ani declined his invite to interview Pallavi. And then you can jump right into the schedule from there and make the switch. If you have interviewers doing this very often on your team, then I see people use the holds functionality first. So you'll hold the schedule, wait for a day or so to make sure there's no declines, and then confirm it.
Got it. And then another good question here from Mary. How, I guess, are our tags, GEM's tags, different from Greenhouse scheduling tags?
Yeah, good question. They are similar to Greenhouse scheduling tags with some bonus functionality. So the ability to attach a training program and give that user a tag at the end of completing their training program automatically. And then also the ability to use those tags in a more like templatized fashion. Like say you have everyone who can do the culture ad interview. In Greenhouse, you kind of have to set up different tags for different roles. Like you have to say, oh, I'm going to use the culture ad tag in this role and in this role. But with us, you can set up different pools in like interview templates and drop that same interview template into multiple different roles. That was a little confusing, but I can definitely dive in over email or something if you want more details on that.
Yeah, sounds good. Another question, when it comes to creating email templates, can you make updates to all emails at once, or do you have to go into each template individually?
Yeah, you can create a single email template that's used across a bunch of different roles. And so if you need to like update the interview prep material, you just update it in that one email template and it'll apply to all of the roles that it's used in.
Got it. Cool. And then how are interviewers reminded of the soon to come interview, like 15-minute reminder that the Slack channel that was created?
Oh, that's a good question. We don't have anything natively built to remind interviewers of upcoming interviews at the moment.
Got it. Cool. And I think we've gone through all of the questions. So I'll give everyone like 5 to 10 seconds more, see if there's any more that come through. But really appreciate everyone's engagement here, and thank you for sharing all these questions. Hopefully this was helpful for all of you who are hearing that. And then just wanted to clarify, I got a few more questions on the pricing side. So if you're a GEM CRM customer, just wanted to let you all know that GEM scheduling, so if you are a GEM CRM customer and you're looking at GEM scheduling, it is available as an optional add-on. But our team is also running a special renewal promotion. So talk to your GEM point of contact if you're a current GEM customer and you're looking for what that renewal promotion is. Essentially, if you're willing to partner with us, sign an early renewal, or meet certain obligations, we can offer a sweetener on that deal as well. So, like I said, feel free to get in touch with us offline. But yeah, I don't see any more questions coming in. So with that said, thank you everyone for attending. I hope you found this useful, and yeah, see you all next time. Take care.
Thank you.